Thank you, everybody. I for one, like the intro music, to be honest. I'm just curious how Palantir got access to my Spotify workout playlist. I mean, it gives me all the motivation I need. As the intro stated, my name is Chad Lesh. I serve as Senior Vice President for Crisis 24, which is a risk intelligence company. And I'm going to take a little different tact with how we talk today. First off, it's really hard to follow those two that stole like half the jokes, and I wish I had the other half that they had, so I'm going to do my best. One thing we're talking about consistently is software enabling operations. One thing that I'm noticing that we're talking around quite a bit is how software actually amplifies leadership. So I want to talk a little bit about that as we start, talk about just a little bit about my background, some leadership traits, how AI actually is in the mix as far as making good leaders better, and then tie it back into enabling operations with Crisis 24. So you're on for a ride. You're gonna hear me rap for a little bit, and then we'll bring it home. So again, I'm thankful to be here. I appreciate Palantir's invite. I certainly appreciate your patience after lunch, third speech after that. You know, I feel like we should get like Red Bull IVs in here, to the extent we can. You laugh about that, but it maybe not a bad idea. I usually start these things with a joke, but my good Palantir handler steered me away from that because it was a little risque. So I'm just going to tell you, you're going to have to leave you in suspense on this one, maybe at the bar later. And on a quick admin note, I actually have a 3-year-old daughter whose birthday is today. So I have to leave right after my presentation. But I really like talking about this. So if there's anything that's of interest to you that resonates, I'd love to follow up later. Please don't be shy about reaching out. So now the hard part for me, which is talking about me for a little bit and transitioning into leadership and how that applies to AI. So prior to my time at Crisis 24, which I started in December, so pretty new, I served for over 15 years at the CIA in the Directorate of Operations, spending most of my time overseas, specializing in executing covert action under Title 50 authorities and collecting human in denied areas. Like many in my agency class, I was in college on 9/11, and I was fixated on the television while the terrorist attack was unfolding, trying to process unsuccessfully what was happening. Like many, I felt both an anger and a sense of resolve that I had never experienced before, and like many Americans as well, the world never quite felt the same again after that day. I resolved at that point that I wanted to serve my country and to work to prevent another event like that from happening. And after a short stint in finance, I was proud that my initial agency application was accepted, and I could start the long, very long, let me emphasize that, interview, testing, and training process to come on board in government service. Although I started my career as a trainee, through the years and a lot of hard work, I had some great mentors and a little bit of luck. I was fortunate to rise through the ranks to executive leadership positions in some of the agency's premier special mission units, as well as support operations that I'm genuinely thankful to have had part of literally every day of my life going forward. I was where I wanted to be and a member of the team that in the mission I wanted to be on. And you don't always realize that in the time, but as I'm getting a little bit older, hence 3-year-old daughter, et cetera, you start to realize it and you start to appreciate it when it happens. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of that experience, more importantly, how that pivots into leadership, and then how we can talk about that with AI. Because I hear it through all the presentations, but I think it's worth really drilling into. So while the title of my presentation is Proactively Preparing for Geopolitical Crises, Leveraging AI to Pivot Data into Action and Risk into Opportunities, try saying that 3 times fast, my bust. I wanted to frame up my brief by talking about a more human perspective on the value of AI and what we're seeing evolve with both Palantir and Crisis 24's partnership with Palantir. And then again, we'll pivot into the tech inside and outs as far as how that goes, tech and tech. More specifically, I mentioned I wanted to talk about leadership and how all this amazing technology we're talking about today that you're hearing about artificial intelligence, NLP, large language models, machine learning, Foundry, etc., can significantly amplify your ability to be a better leader within your organization. So forget operations for a second. Think about what you're doing as a leader where you work. Whether it's in the intelligence community, like me, the defense industry, military, government, or commercial applications, I think there's universal appeal. So let's start with a couple traits of what makes a good leader. I remember the first presentation mentioned Simon Sinek, and I think that's a good video if anyone hasn't seen it. So I got to scratch that one out of my brief here. But let's just pick 4 random attributes that I'm going to come back to. First, integrity. Trust is paramount, and integrity is the foundation of trust. Leaders must be honest and transparent and prove their competence by adding value to the team's goals and direction. We're going to come back to that. Courage and decisiveness. Leaders must exhibit both moral and physical courage, which I don't define as the absence of fear, but rather having fear, but still doing the right thing in that situation. You must be willing to make decisions, often under pressure, and sometimes with limited information. The ability to change decisions in light of new information is also key, which we can call adaptability, as is staying the course when appropriate or recovering from setbacks, which you can call resiliency. Courage and decision-making are 2 sides of the same coin when it comes to leadership. Accountability. That's another leadership trait that doesn't always get the attention it deserves. All right, that was pretty dry humor. I'm supposed to laugh at that one. That was bad. All right, it gets worse from there. You must be willing to make decisions often you can see how the absence of accountability, the damage it can have on organizations. Leaders take responsibility for both their actions and their subordinates. When they recognize mistakes are made, they take corrective action and learn from them. That is an absolutely key piece. But you can't take accountability if you don't understand the problem set you're dealing with. Again, key point right there, which I think is going to come back to Palantir and AI. Last one, I promise. Communication. Leaders must communicate clearly to prevent misunderstandings and know their audience. The ability to adapt communication styles and best fit the team is essential. And as always, communication is a 2-way street. Leaders must be able to make sense of many different team inputs, messages, data, imagery, etc., to find both the connective tissue and the signal and the noise to communicate direction to the team and ensure you are pursuing the best courses of action to achieve mission. So the ability to consolidate that data, make sense of it, and then how are we going to move out from here and communicate that to others, absolutely critical to leadership. So just to summarize, we have integrity, courage and decisiveness, accountability, and communication. Now, how the hell do all of those relate to what Crisis 24 and Palantir is doing together and what many of you are all doing together with AI and Palantir as well? So in integrity, you all know the feeling, everyone in this room. The whole organization is looking at you to be the most competent in managing the team's efforts in the right direction, using anticipatory intelligence, which is a key piece of what we're doing, to gain strategic insights into emerging risks can help give your team a competitive edge in ensuring mission success and planning for all potential contingencies. You build greater trust and integrity by consistently providing the team the most accurate and insightful information. That exemplifies that competence and trust we talked about that leads to integrity. Courage and decisiveness. Lack of information leads to a lack of decision making. Or too much information, in my old job, we used to say, can lead to analysis paralysis, i.e. also a lack of decision making. Being able to quickly research and understand problem sets with artificial intelligence large language models, while also factoring in predictive analytics to more accurately identify and weigh probabilities of future outcomes, enables you to be a more decisive and effective leader, while also keeping you both adaptable and resilient As new information comes to light and you're able to assimilate that with the old, get a new operating picture, and communicate change out to the team in the best possible direction. Accountability. I know a lot about this one, maybe not always the best. Data aggregation in Foundry allows you to quickly analyze any mistakes you may have made post-mortem. I like to say what gets measured gets attended for, and what gets attended for gets done. With Foundry, you can retrace the data feed timelines that precipitated an unexpected incident and see what precursors might be out there that you could identify in the future to prevent it from happening again. Basics of predictive analytics, anticipatory intelligence, emerging risk, many names, same deal. It changes the classic "we messed up" speech, we've all made that, into the "we messed up, but this is what we learned from it, and this is what we're going to do to prevent it from happening again." As I said before, I've had my share of "we've messed up" speeches, so I consider myself an excellent expert on the topic. Finally, communication. We all heard the cliche quote, "A picture is worth 1,000 words." Being able to visualize data easily and instantly in Foundry for your team to highlight key metrics, maps, events, etc., can help deliver the message to the team more efficiently and effectively. That is powerful. In addition to helping your team visualize concepts and results, you're also gaining a deeper understanding yourself, which increases your competency, trust, and integrity. So there's a lot of other attributes to leadership. We could spend the whole time talking about that. I'm not as entertaining as Simon Sinek. I don't have the whiteboard to draw around. You haven't even seen my penmanship, and that's by design. But just in summary, before we go to the deck, technology is not going to do the hard work for you to be a good leader. It's not. It's not a magic button you can press. Moral courage and integrity will always rest with the individual. But when you as a strong leader start taking on board this new technology and applying it to the core leadership traits that make you good at what you do and motivate your team, it is an incredibly powerful tool to have in your tool belt. And I would encourage all of you to think about that in addition to how we're applying AI to enhance operations, improve revenue, and certainly increase efficiency. So thank you for sticking around with me for that. We're going to switch to the PowerPoint. I promise it'll be brief, but I'm going to give a case study of the tool that Crisis 24 and Palantir is building together and open it up for any questions that might exist afterwards. All right. So let's see if this works. So who we are. I'm going to keep this really brief. Crisis 24 is a subsidiary of GardaWorld. GardaWorld is one of the top 3 security companies in the world, employ over 125,000 people, service over half of the Fortune 500 companies in the globe. We offer platinum-level risk management services that include risk intelligence, travel risk management, security and medical assistance, crisis and consulting, crisis response, global protective solutions, and training. Put simply, we like to say we help the helpers. So there's CSOs at companies, there's GSOCs, et cetera. We have a level of expertise with intelligence, military, academic members who are absolute subject matter experts in their field and are able to feed excellent and top-of-the-line information for those who are looking out for their people and their property. I work and I'm responsible for an office called Strategic Projects, where we intersect technology, strategy, and risk intelligence. So it's kind of like an applied sciences. I am the dumbest one on the team, and I say that with pride. We have some great senior deep learning engineers involved in AI, data scientists, former agency analysts who have done over 100 presidential daily briefings, et cetera. And really, they're putting all of their efforts and their time together to make new tools to enable better strategic insights that can guide our clients based on our baseline intelligence. And I'm going to talk about what that means and how we do that. But one of the core things of what we do is that we're on the ground floor. We're in the trenches. I don't know where the ivory tower is or the glass bubble, but we're connected to real world problems, and we like it that way. And that helps us keep us tied in close to the business operations and make sure that the things that we're creating actually solve a business need and are not a solution in search of a problem. Probably a common thing that many of us have heard and seen at various parts in our career. Just to quickly summarize what we're building with Palantir, and then I'll show you just some shots of it. We're combining our forces together in a strategic partnership. Crisis 24 is bringing our proprietary intelligence. We have almost 200 human analysts, predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, and then when you mix that with Palantir's Foundry, they're experts in data aggregation. I know of no one else in the field who is even close to the capabilities that they can provide. We're combining those skill sets to create what we call the Dynamic Risk Library, where we're focused on turning data into actionable insights and risks into opportunities. So get out of the reactive and get into the proactive. You know, in the old world in risk management, something bad happens, and the goal is how fast can we tell our clients about it, and how accurate can the summary be? Can we do it within 10 minutes of it happening? Can we do it within 15 minutes? Now we're looking 30 days out. We're looking 45 days out, 60 days out by using predictive analytics, AI, and that anticipatory intelligence and trying to bring it back home. Last thing I'll say about this, as we keep it moving for us in this project, risk isn't just avoiding something bad. That's how we traditionally define it. But it's also the risk of missing out on something good. So some of the things, if we have advanced knowledge of, you can start playing some 4D chess of how can we position our company, our assets, our way forward, so we can actually turn this, negative event that we don't have any control over into something that can be a benefit to our company, or at a minimal, best insulate our interest around the world. All right, so I apologize in advance. This is just a very high-level overview of how the software works together. First off, I don't think you can make Foundry a two-dimensional picture, so my apologies to my Palantir brethren, but this is what we're working with on the screen. Definitely multifaceted. That serves as the backbone of everything we're doing. Beneath Foundry, you can see a grayish bubble. That constitutes all the different vetted data sources that we're piping into Foundry. We have about 8 right now that we're doing that include our own proprietary intelligence, disaster, aware information, the same company that's providing information to NASA, International Atomic Energy Association, et cetera. But it can also be infinitely expanded, as many as you know. I don't think there's a noodle out there that you can't throw at the Palantir wall that's not going to stick in Foundry from a data perspective. So we have a starting point, but that's just the building block from where we go from there. The top line from left to right, that's our emerging risk tripwires. Basically, we've reverse engineered historically bad events that we would like to know about in the future if we can find a correlation coefficient. And once we refine that model, we make it go live. The different information or data feeds that we have go into that net, or phishing net, if you will. And if it finds something that's negative, it'll notify the user. There's also a proactive approach where you can do some of your own studies into different areas, not only to see if there's risk, but also see if there's an absence of risk, which can be just as valuable for a company. You want to be able to verify that, hey, this is a stable government, crime is at an acceptable level, et cetera. That's valuable too. It's kind of the opposite of risk, but it's valuable information. The bottom line is where we get into our AI conversational agent. So think ChatGPT, but not ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is amazing. Certainly the NLP processing it is out of this world, but it's the classic garbage in, garbage out. So, if you're basing all of your life decisions on every blog you read on your internet, good luck to you. I got some swampland in Florida I could sell to you for a real steal. So what we are doing is we're disconnecting GPT or GPT-like language models from the bad information, and we're only training it on that vetted information that we have high confidence levels in. It can't make you Rolling Stone style lyrics about honey badgers, which ChatGPT can do, and I actually recommend it. It's pretty good. But if you're asking a security or risk or kind of second, third, or fourth order effect question relative to your country or company, or country for that matter, it can do a phenomenal job, and you can have faith and confidence in the information it gives back. All right, so how does geopolitical risk affect supply chain risk? Interesting question with significant business continuity, military, operational, and financial impacts. The Dynamic Risk Library breaks questions down into answers that address the classic analyst approach, at least at the agency. What is the what is the so what, and the now what, customized to your organization. So the what, we talk about, okay, Russia invaded Ukraine, and we'll talk about that in a second. The so what is, what does that matter to your company? And if you're BP Oil, or if you're Wellington Management, or if you're Coca-Cola, you're going to be interested in different aspects of that outside of the humanitarian impact that happened from that event. This addresses that. And then the now what? How can we respond? What are some options out there of what we can do to either mitigate this risk or turn it into an opportunity? And that's presented to a leader, to a manager, could be an analyst too, to start that process of, we have a high likelihood looking into the future that this is going to happen. We're going to see this sooner. What can we do to best position ourselves? And I'll show you an example. So I mentioned Russia and Ukraine. Certainly that's centered in everyone's mind. And I know there's a lot of phenomenal work going far beyond what we're talking about here by members in this room, in this theater, which I'm very thankful for. So the what of this is Russia invades Ukraine. And we had a premonition of this about 2 months before it happened, when the weapon machinery of Russia was lining up against the border. It wasn't 100%. There were some dissenting opinions, but it was definitely a probability. So what do you do with that? That's the what. Now, so what to me? So if you were working in the commodities market, dealing in supply chain, two things that come to mind is, number one, Ukraine produces 50% of the world's neon gas. And when someone tells me that, I think, is there going to be a shortage of cheap beer signs at the watering holes I usually go to? Well, yeah, there's that, but also neon gas is absolutely critical for the lasers that cut semiconductors. You can't make semiconductors without neon gas. What else is going on in the world right now? A little thing with China and Taiwan, kind of semiconductors involved there. Good to know. That's a so what. Other thing, palladium. Again, I'm slow. I saw Iron Man when it first came out, and I think I remember Tony Stark put palladium in that little thing in his chest to keep the metal out of his heart. TMI, I apologize. I think I violated some medical privacy rules there, but palladium is also critical for catalytic converters. Can't make a catalytic converter without that. Prices of palladium went up 600%. Have you seen any disruptions to the automotive industry as of late, dealing with both semiconductors and catalytic converters? Have you seen a criminal enterprise open up in stealing catalytic converters for about $250 last I checked the local market? From somebody I know, from somebody, IRS, please, earmuffs. Right, this has some second order so what effects. That's good to know. Now we move to the now what, all right? We get an understanding of what this means to us. Well, what can we do? So I talked about what neon gas is used for. I talked about palladium, what it's used for, kind of the percentage of the global supply that's out there. Certainly that context is important. What can we do to prepare? Number one, if we're 2 months in advance and we think there's a strong probability that this might happen, should we stockpile more neon gas or palladium in our company? Does that make sense? Might have to pay more money. Are we in a position where we can do that? Let's explore it. Another thing we could say is, where is the other 50% of the neon gas in the world coming from? Can we, before demand outpaces supply, if Russia goes into Ukraine, start forming contracts with these producers to get access to either neon gas or palladium before the pot boils over. Worst case, maybe we're paying a little bit more. Thank God the war doesn't happen and we can readjust after that. But it's contingency planning. When I think of the military, I certainly think of, I mentioned China and Taiwan. That factors into geopolitics and certainly diplomatic arenas and understanding the severity of which way some things might go. When I think of the military, I certainly think of Humvees, APCs, MRAPs, et cetera, needing catalytic converters. Are we going to have the supplies we need for that, or is it going to affect our budget and jack it up for what we need to pay for palladium in the sense that this went up 600%? And how might that affect our military readiness? So it really, I think as we go deeper, and I'm almost done, I promise, what do these things do that is really unique, that is special for us? And I think the biggest thing is just that limitless customization. BP has different goals than Coca-Cola, has different goals than an investment bank. And then even within BP, the person who's the chief security officer is going to have different goals and interests than the person who's in charge of oil refinery plants or maintenance, et cetera. So having that flexibility in a singular tool where you can start tackling those different types of questions that are specifically tiered to not only your company's interests, but your role's interests within that company is invaluable. That I think is the biggest piece of it. If anyone uses Apple Music, again, I mentioned my choice in gym selection for my competitive flag twirling with the intro music, but we make user profiles. So if you remember the first time you use Spotify or Apple Music, it starts with what genres of music you like. You click on that, and it shows you some other bands, and then you start drilling down, and it shows you some other bands, and it starts introducing you to some cool music. Well, we're doing a similar thing with what industry are you in? What geographical areas of the world are you interested in? What type of role are you in, right? To try to get in when we get to that signal through the noise, what might be gold to you might be, popcorn for someone else, censored version. And also think about, although we're coming to the table with our own data sets, you can create your own data play sets, proprietary data that your company has. It will live at your company. It's not coming back to Crisis 24. It's not coming back to Palantir. You can kind of make that medley and mix it all together so you can get that customized view of what you're coming to the table with in the core product is great, but that's just the starting point of where you can go with it. I'll end it with a few other slides, but I know I'm tight on time. I think of this as like a telescope, and some people have heard me say this, and I apologize to the repeat. Think of a singular lens in a telescope as like a piece of data. And when you look through that lens, it's concave or convex, and it gives you a unique outlook on the world you didn't see before. For us in working with Palantir, it's like you get the whole telescope, and you can kind of customize the different lenses that you put together in that telescope, which not only allows you to see further, greater clarity, but you also start seeing connection points between those lenses that you weren't able to see before until you cleaned them up and lined them up together. And that's really, I think, the value of what this provides, the mixture of AI, large language models, predictive analytics, working with a partner like Palantir, having the risk of, the geopolitical risk, man-made events, natural-made events, understanding those second and third order events, and ultimately, at the end of the day, what the hell does it mean to you, and what can you do to kind of brace for that storm or kind of surf the wave if the opportunity presents itself. So I'll stop there. I'm light on time. I apologize. But do you have any questions that I might be able to answer or address, realizing that I'm the third speaker after lunch? And again, sorry for that. Thank you.
We have time for one question.
All right. Easy one, please. Softballs. Oh, now my feelings are hurt. Either that or it was just such an amazing presentation that it was, all right. Well, please reach out. My address is chad.lesch, L-E-S-C-H, at crisis24.com if you have any questions. Certainly any contacts at Palantir, if you would be so kind, if they're asking. And again, I really appreciate your time and patience. I know we went on a kind of like a different path in the beginning, but I hope you didn't mind that, and it kind of made sense bringing us back home to how we operationalize data and how that can work for you. Thank you very much.